Okay, show of hands. Who in the room is working on a product or an app that is designed to improve people's lives in some way or another? Hands are up in the room. If your hand is not up, get out. Just kidding. Okay, so if that is true, if we're looking to help people, right, improve their lives in some way, then the key question that we need to answer is, how do we survive over the long term? How do we increase long-term engagement so that we can better do this over time? And that's what I'm going to be talking about today, but I want to start with a story, something that happened to me recently on a trip to Montreal that I think everyone can relate to. It speaks to a problem that everyone in this room has. Now, what happened, the story I want to tell is about the travel portion that, on a trip to Montreal. Montreal is a wonderful city. I highly recommend it, but that's not what I want to talk about. I want to tell you about the trip going there. I happened to check a bag. I hate doing this. It's super inefficient. But I did so because it was a longer trip. Check my bag. Take the flight. The flight's delayed. By the time we land, everyone is we just want our bags. We just want to get out of there. And it's taking forever for the bags to come out. What happens then? Finally, beep, 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 we hear the sound that we all want to hear. The luggage carousel is starting. Awesome. So everyone crowds round. I'm sure you are familiar with this scene. Everyone crowds round as close as they possibly can to the luggage carousel. Now, there's only so much room in front of that luggage carousel. Not everyone can be at the very front. So if you're one of those poor souls in the back, you're sort of crouching and looking behind, in between heads, trying to see where your luggage is coming out. Finally, you see it, and again, you're blocked. So, excuse me, sir, sorry, can I get through here? And you get your luggage, and you can finally get out of there. Great. Now, if we all think about this scenario for a second, we probably all realize it would be better if we all stood back, maybe a foot and a half. That way, there'd be enough room. When your luggage actually comes out, that's the real time you need to come up. There's plenty of space. You can get your luggage. You don't bruise and bump anyone on the way. And the solution works better for everyone. But individually, if you think of this idea, or if I think of this idea, and you just want to say, I'm going to stand back, what's going to happen? You're just going to be that one chump in the back. Everyone's going to crowd in front of you, and you're not going to be able to see your luggage, and we're kind of at the same place. But some of you probably have seen airports where their luggage carousels are designed a little bit differently. They have a white line painted. Raise your hand if you've seen this somewhere around the world, right? There's a white line painted. And what happens then is everyone stands back a little bit, and the whole system works better. And so this is what I want to talk about today, is how do we create this white line for ourselves in our space? And what space are we in? The attention economy. Every single one in this room, whether you like it or not, you are battling for people's attention. I would say to the death, but maybe that's a little overdramatic. So we really all have to be fighting for people's attention, and there's a limited amount of time in the day. There's a limited amount of attention that they have, and we're all battling each other for this attention. And how are we doing that? What's the main currency in the attention economy? It's notifications. That is the tool that we're using in this fight for people's attention. And why are we relying so heavily on notifications? Because we learned very early on, a lovely gentleman named B.F. Skinner taught us about the importance of random reinforcement. So we did these experiments with rats, where he set it up so that the rat would come up and push a lever, and when they did that, food would come out. Awesome. What he learned, though, is that if you set up the lever differently so that food doesn't come out every time, but only some of the time, what happens then to the rat? Exactly, I see someone going like this. That's exactly what happens. So the rat pushes the lever much more frequently when it's set up to give food not all of the time, but only some of the time. And I'm sorry to say that we, whether we like it or not, are much more like rats than we might want to admit. Think of a Facebook notification, right? You don't know what it's going to be. It could be a like, it could be a comment. If it's a comment, I got to go figure out, is it a good comment, is it a bad comment? Or it could just be, oh, it's that your random Uncle Tom that you never talked to's birthday today. there's this whole range of what this notification could be, and it's the fact of not knowing. Is it going to be a good one? Is it going to be a bad one? Is it going to be a neutral one? That is what creates this really, really strong pull of notifications. Now, we know this. The challenge, though, for us is that notifications can be very, very problematic in many ways. These are unintended consequences. I'm not saying that anyone is meaningfully doing this, but there are a lot of areas, and errors is the first one, as my slide already tells you. This is really well researched. So, for example, in terms of errors, there's lots of studies that bring people in and then divide them into two groups. So random assignment, right? We'll take, literally, if it was this room, we would take you half here, you'd be in group A, you half here, you would be in group B. We'd put you in different rooms. But then we would give you the same task. Usually it's a quantitative sort of math test, math assignment that you do. And let's pick group A as the lucky group. You guys, while you're doing your math problem, we're going to ping you with notifications as you're doing it. Group B, sorry, no notifications for you. And what happens in how successfully people do this math problem? Who thinks they're equal? Awesome, everyone's paying attention. Who thinks that group A makes more errors? You guys are a really smart group. This is true. So group A makes many more errors, actually. And I'm very struck by this. Depending on the study, it's not like 5%, 10%. It's actually about double the error rate. Twice as many errors. So I just want to let that sink in for a second, and especially think about the fact that, we use this term, our users. We talk about our users, and that's what we say in the industry. But I want to pause on this and say, our users are real people, of course. Our users are our doctors. They're our teachers. They're the engineers who are building our bridges. Do we want to be setting up a system where we're potentially doubling the error rate of what they're doing? Probably not, right? The second area where notifications can be problematic is with time cost. So specifically, like switching costs. So you're doing one thing, you get a notification, you look at that, you open the app, you kind of get sucked down that rabbit hole for a little while, and you come back to what you were doing. So Gloria Mark has shown us that it takes us an average of 23 minutes to refocus on our original task. And that's from one interruption. Multiply that out through the day, and we think about, what is this total cost on human productivity? What are all the amazing things we could be doing if we weren't, incurring these switching costs? And related to this, there's also measurable stress and frustration. So we can measure this psychologically, and that comes from this idea of like, oh, I got distracted, and now I have to spend this mental energy, emotional energy, refocusing on what I'm doing. So what does all of this mean? Does this mean that notifications are all bad? Probably not. I also actually do want to touch on this, the fact that we can see, I nerded out for a second and told you all about the studies, because I'm a behavioral scientist and I do that, but we can also, even if I didn't tell you about the studies, you probably already know this, right? From looking at the media, the headlines that we see out there. 6 ways to overcome smartphone addiction, 10 tricks for checking your phone less. I mean, these are a dime a dozen. We see these all the time. We see this trend of millennials, turning off their social media entirely or going on month-long social media breaks. We also even see these, I'm kind of, sad. It's kind of funny and sad at the same time that there are these things called digital detox retreats where people literally pay money to have their phones taken away from them. This is in Silicon Valley. Is there any shock on that? So we see this in the media. We see this in the app space even, right? We see more and more apps trying to help people deal with the fact that there's this sort of love-hate relationship with their phones. How can I better understand how many minutes I'm spending on my phone? How can I not let it have such a strong pull on my time and my productivity? I was struck recently, I discovered this app called Snowball. This app specifically turns off, like kind of blocks annoying notifications. That's its whole reason for being and function in life. That's just one. I'm sure there will be many more in this space. So what is this telling us? Again, as I was saying, this is kind of hinting at the fact that there's a problem here, right? And it's for us to think about how can we resolve this. I would argue that as designers of the system, we have some moral responsibility here. We could also just take that argument aside, though. We could just say, forget about that. That's nice and all. That's how it is. We don't care. You could take that argument aside. Here's the real kicker. Notifications, over-relying on notifications is bad for developers. And that's what I want to talk about, too. So this is a study that looked at the top reasons that people uninstall apps. Uninstall apps is pretty much the worst case scenario for any of us, right? That's the last thing that we want people to be doing. This is a study in which people were given a lot of reasons that they could answer. They could pick more than one, so the totals do add up to more than 100 here. But what is the top reason given? Annoying notifications. This is the last thing that we want to have happening. Combine that with the fact, when we think about our model in this industry, how sustainable is this? This is an industry where we know we have very high user acquisition costs, right? We're spending lots of money on the front end to bring in new users. And yet what happens is, after the first month, we're retaining 36% of them, the second month, 25%, the third month down to 20%. So another way to look at this is across all industries, this is an average, by the way, of all industries within the app space, 80% of all app users are churning within 90 days. This is insane. And the question is, how is this sustainable for us? We're going to run out of users. We better repopulate the earth really, really quickly because we're going to run out of users to tap in this model, right? So the bigger question is, what do we do? Are we on this ship headed for self-destruction, or are there things that we can do? I actually want to talk about 3 things that we can do. Starting with the most obvious, stopping the madness, stopping the attention-grabbing madness. So I think we can actually all agree that this is a real scenario, sending 3 notifications within 1 hour about the exact same video, that wasn't going to go anywhere. This video wasn't going to go anywhere if I was going to watch it right that second, right? This is probably not being a good citizen. I think we can all agree about that. Now, as I said, I'm not trying to say that all notifications are bad. The question here is, what boundaries? What would that look like if we kind of said, this is how we want to function in this space? This is a better way of thinking about this. What would that look like? That would be things like, let's click forward to the next slide, aligning with our users' intentions. So another show of hands. How many people in the room have some kind of subscription, membership, something like that you have been meaning to cancel or you probably should cancel, but you haven't gotten around to doing it yet? Lots of hands going up in the room. What's up with you guys? If you want to do that, why aren't you doing it? We have this a lot, right? We have this with health. I mean to eat healthier. I mean to exercise more, but I don't. These are challenges. In psychology, this is called the action-intention gap. And our opportunity is to say, how can we bring these two together? Imagine a world where we can help people achieve what they're trying to achieve, from healthier eating to working out more, to being more productive, or whatever it is, again, whichever space you're in. And this would mean that if your headspace, I believe headspace is somewhere in the room. If your headspace, let's say that someone downloads your app, meditates for the first 3 days, but on the 4th day they drop off. Sending a notification to ping that user to come back and meditate today is fully aligned with that user's intentions, right? So this would be a good example of sending a notification. Another example. This probably sounds like heresy, but we should not be forcing the users to open the app when we get a notification. This is a health app, obviously, Mango Health. It says, it's time to take care of you. You have 1 health reminder. Ooh. And so then you open the app and you discover that it tells you to drink water, which is very helpful. Great, I should hydrate, I should drink water. Contrast, though, with Argus that tells you immediately, directly, drink water, right? This is a much more respectful way of engaging with our users. Another example, a positive example. If your Waze You know that someone takes 280 regularly. Hey, by the way, 280 is about to shut down. Very helpful, timely information for that particular user. United Airlines, you're walking to one gate. Hey, by the way, your gate changed to another one. You might want to be going that way. Helpful information. Clarity Money. Hey, you're overspending for how you usually spend. You might want to taper that down. Helpful, timely information relevant to me. The last example I'm going to give you is from an app called ShapeUp. It's in the health and weight management space. It's an app that I'm working on. And we know from research that stepping on a scale daily, especially when it's done in the morning, is correlated with weight loss. So this is sort of our baseline fact that we know. So my challenge is to say, okay, great. Now that I know this and I want, these people want to lose weight, how do I help them do that? I need to get them to step on the scale. How do I do that? Notification. But how do I do it in a way that we're maybe not going to be dependent on the notification forever? I ask them to think of a habit that they already have, something that's already happening in the morning, right? Do you want to do this before you brush your teeth, after you eat breakfast, before you do your morning yoga? So they're choosing which habit that they want to pair it with. So we give them a list of these things. We ask them what time do they usually do this. And so you're giving the user choice, and you're helping them build positive habits. Okay, so that was talking about notifications, kind of some quick examples. I could talk all day about this, but some quick examples of some do's and don'ts. The second piece, beyond notifications, is about aligning our metrics with our users' goals. So, for example, if you are Trello, ultimately, what is your user trying to do? They're trying to complete projects. They're trying to get stuff done, right? If you are an online dating app, which I believe there are many in the room, then people are trying to find a relationship. That's what they're trying to do ultimately. And if you are LinkedIn, who's over there, then people are trying to find a job that they love. These are ultimately, there's probably a lot of other things that they're doing as well, but ultimately, if we have to boil it down to the top thing that our users are trying to achieve, these are the things, right? They do not care. They are not looking and thinking about number of logins, number of swipes, number of LinkedIn connections we have. These are different metrics, okay? And so the question is, what can we do to align better with our users? The other part that's challenging here is our over-reliance on short-term metrics. So I imagine that many of you, let's say we have a dashboard in our office. It's this really big dashboard, and really big at the top, we have all of these metrics, but the two that we focus on the most, anyone want to shout them out? What are they? Daily active users, number of sessions people are completing, right? These are two that I see time and time again. And if we think about, this is in our office, every day we come in, we focus on how do I change these two numbers? What's the obvious answer? Notifications. I can ping with notifications right now, and I will move the needle on those two things. For sure. But the challenge is that when we're sending a notification, two things are actually happening. One, you're getting this short blip, right, in engagement right now, but you're also getting long-term deterioration. But we're not seeing that. We're not looking at that with such an intense focus that we have on these short-term measures. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't measure these short-term things. I'm saying that we should create a better balance. We should focus more on these longer-term measures, customer lifetime value. I know that many of you in the room are working on this or have, put together metrics to do this, and kudos to you. It is more challenging. Part of the reason we rely so heavily on short-term measures is because it's way easier to calculate. You just see it, right? You build a little report, it's there. Customer lifetime value is a lot harder to calculate. Aligning with our users' ultimate goals is a lot harder to do, but it's the right thing to do. Okay, one more piece in terms of driving long-term engagement is about increasing trust. Again, a lot of research on how to do this. I will just say briefly, think about any relationship that you have in your life. Your spouse, it could be romantic, it doesn't have to be romantic, it could be your friendships, work colleagues. Think about any of these relationships. Now, if you only ever in these relationships acted in your own best interest, how long do you think these relationships would last? Not very long, right? If you only ever acted for yourself. Now, what makes us think that this would be any different in our world? Imagine a world where your Lyft, this is a mock-up, this is not real. Imagine a world where you're Lyft and you ping drivers, hey, it might be a good time for you to stop driving right now. What would we see? Remember our dashboard? We would actually see that number go down a little bit as some of the drivers would sign off, the drivers that we pinged with this notification. Active users go down. But think about the long-term effect on that driver. Instead of someone who is, I'm not suggesting that Lyft does this, but if instead of a model where someone's like always, more minutes, drive more, versus, hey, I care about you. You've driven probably enough right now, and there's not that much demand anyway in where you are. Think about how that person feels. And so this is just one example, and then you can come up with your own as well. So what is all of this about? What I'm trying to say here is that it's our opportunity, our time, to band together, to create our own code of ethics when it comes to this attention economy. This is going to be really hard. I'm not saying it's easy at all, but this is the future. Luckily for us, we don't have to start from scratch. People have dealt with this before. Let's think of organic food. Imagine the time, think back if you can, to when before organic food labels existed. So you're the organic food farmer, and you want to create better product that is healthier for people, that isn't polluting the environment with who knows what kind of chemicals, right? You want to do this. And so you're making your grapes, and you're very proud of your grapes, and they're awesome, and they go on the shelf, and they're competing with those other grapes that have pesticides on them. And what's the difference? The only difference at that point is price. And you're going to lose that battle, because at that point, the consumer has no understanding, no idea. Well, why would I pay more for that's all I can see is these grapes cost more. And yet, with the label, right, this became a signifier, a symbol of the fact that these grapes, this product, was made with a different set of standards, with a different set of norms. It's in a different category. And so I think this is a really nice example for us to think about. Can we create something similar to that? The second example I want to give you is also from food, but it's from the UK. So the British government, like our government as well, actually, realized that, hey, we have a problem with our population. Obesity numbers are really way too high. People are very unhealthy. How do we fix this? And so one of the things that they did is they turned to the food manufacturers and said, guess what? We have two choices here. One, we will regulate you. We will come up with a set of standards that you're going to have to follow. This process is going to be very expensive, very laborious. And because we, are an outside function, we might not necessarily come up with the right answers. Sorry, can we go back? So that was option A, right? We will regulate you. Second option, you guys regulate yourselves. What did the British food manufacturers do? They said, absolutely, we will do that. They banded together, they created standards for sugar content and all kinds of details on how the products were able to be made, fat content, et cetera. They lowered all of these, right? So across the board, and this was effort for them. There was cost involved. Any one of them couldn't have done it individually. The whole reason why this worked is that they did it together. But then everyone won, right? Because consumers in the end ended up with products that were a lot less sugary. So this is, again, our opportunity to create something for ourselves. There's examples of this. These are just two that I've given. But ultimately, it's time for us to create our own white line, to design a system that works better for everyone. Thank you.